Let me tell you something very real. Most men think that in order to make a woman miss them, they need to constantly stay in her face, texting, calling, proving themselves, and showing her why they're worthy of her attention. But what usually happens? She gets bored. She feels smothered. And the more you try to prove your value, the less she sees it. Silence is one of the most powerful tools you can ever use when it comes to relationships, attraction, and influence. Most men underestimate it because they think silence equals weakness or disinterest. They believe that if they're not constantly talking, texting, or proving themselves, they will lose the woman they're interested in. But in reality, silence creates a mystery that words can never achieve. A woman doesn't miss a man because he overwhelms her with constant communication. She misses him when his absence creates a gap in her world that she cannot easily fill. When you're always available, there's no opportunity for her to feel your absence. But when you intentionally step back, you give her space to reflect, to think, and most importantly, to feel the void you leave behind. That void is exactly where missing you begins. Think about it. When someone is constantly around, you take their presence for granted. It becomes ordinary, predictable, and in many ways invisible. But the moment that presence disappears, the mind starts to notice. The human brain is wired to pay attention to what's missing rather than what's always there. Silence works on the same psychological principle. When you stop reaching out all the time, when you're not blowing up her phone or constantly reminding her of your existence, she begins to notice the lack of your attention. And that's when questions start to run through her mind. Why hasn't he called? Why is he so quiet? Did something change? Those questions create emotional tension, and tension is what builds attraction. Another layer of silence is that it communicates strength. A man who can remain silent is a man who is in control of himself. He doesn't react out of desperation, and he doesn't need to constantly seek validation through her responses. Women notice this instantly, even if they don't admit it out loud. A man who knows when to stay quiet is sending a subtle but clear message. I am not afraid of losing you. I am secure in myself, and my world doesn't revolve around your attention. That type of energy makes a woman respect you far more than endless begging or chasing ever will. Silence is not about playing games. It's about demonstrating composure and confidence through restraint. And here's what most men fail to understand. Silence doesn't push a woman away, it pulls her in. Why? Because curiosity is one of the most powerful emotional triggers. The moment you go quiet, her mind begins to create stories to fill that gap. She'll wonder what you're doing, who you're with, and why you're suddenly not available. Her imagination starts working overtime, and whether she realizes it or not, she's giving you attention in her thoughts. This is why silence can be so effective, because you're not even there, but you're still occupying space in her mind. The power of silence also lies in how it contrasts with noise. If you're always loud, always present, always filling every gap, she never gets to feel the difference between your presence and your absence. But when you introduce silence strategically, your presence becomes amplified when you do show up again. Think of it like music. The pauses between the notes are just as important as the notes themselves. Without those pauses, the music would lose its rhythm and impact. In the same way, silence makes your words, your actions, and your presence more meaningful. But let's be very clear, silence should never come from insecurity or fear. It shouldn't be about running away or ignoring her as some kind of punishment. It's about self-respect. It's about showing that you're not desperate for her attention and that you have the discipline to step back and focus on yourself. A woman can sense the difference between silence that comes from weakness and silence that comes from strength. Weak silence feels like neglect. Strong silence feels like confidence, and it is the confident silence that makes makes her miss you, because she realizes that you are not clinging onto her like everyone else. When you master silence, you shift the balance of power without saying a word. You're no longer chasing her approval or validation. You're standing in your own energy and letting her come to you. And the beauty of it is, the less you say, the more she starts to think. The less you reach out, the more she starts to wonder. And the more she wonders, the more she feels your absence. And when she feels your absence deeply enough, that's when she starts to miss you in ways she never expected. One of the most overlooked aspects of attraction is the concept of creating an energetic gap. What does that mean? It means building space between you and her, not only physically, but also emotionally and energetically. Most men fail here because they think proximity equals connection. They assume that the closer they are, the more present they are, the more she will value them. But in reality, when you collapse the distance and flood her with constant energy, there is nothing for her to long for. She knows you're always there. She knows your attention is guaranteed, and that certainty kills the spark. A woman can only miss you when she feels a gap between your presence and your absence, and that gap has to be intentional. Creating an energetic gap starts with your lifestyle. If she senses that your entire life revolves around her, she has no reason to chase, no reason to wonder, and no reason to crave you when you're not there. But if she sees that you have passions, goals, and commitments that demand your focus, it shifts her perception. You're no longer the man waiting around for her attention. You're the man she needs to schedule herself around. When you're busy, when your energy is spread across multiple dimensions of your life, your career, your health, your family, your vision, she realizes that your time is not cheap. And the moment your time becomes valuable, your presence becomes rare. Rarity is what fuels desire, and desire is what turns into missing you when you're gone. This gap is not about ignoring her or playing games. It's about making sure your energy is not so easily accessible that she forgets its value. Imagine a perfume. If you smell it constantly, you stop noticing it after a while. But if you catch a hint of it only once in a while, it lingers in your memory long after it's gone. That's exactly how your energy should feel to a woman. If you're constantly pouring attention on her, it loses its power. But if you create moments of presence followed by moments of absence, she starts to carry your presence in her mind when you're not around. She begins to replay the last thing you said, the way you looked at her, the vibe you gave off, and she notices the gap when it's missing. Another reason this works so powerfully is because women are naturally drawn to men who have purpose. If you have no mission beyond her, you'll suffocate the connection with neediness. But when she sees you waking up early, grinding towards your goals, staying disciplined in your fitness, or pursuing a vision bigger than yourself, she respects you. That respect grows into admiration, and admiration creates longing. She'll want to be a part of your world, and when you're not around, she'll crave that energy again because it inspires her. She'll feel like you bring something into her life that no one else does, and that's what makes her miss you when you're not there. The energetic gap also works because it taps into the psychology of anticipation. When someone has to wait for your time or your energy, the value of that interaction multiplies. If you give her everything up front, there's no anticipation, no build-up, and no craving. But when you let her experience distance, whether it's in the form of silence, delayed responses, or simply prioritizing your own growth, she feels that anticipation. That anticipation keeps her mind occupied with you in a way that constant presence never could. She starts wondering when she'll hear from you again, when she'll get to see you, when you'll share that energy that feels different from anyone else's. That wondering is the foundation of missing you. But here's the key. Creating an energetic gap only works when it's authentic. If you fake being busy, she'll sense it. If you create distance just to manipulate her, it will backfire. The gap has to be real, rooted in the fact that your life is full, your time is important, and your focus is not something you casually hand out. When you embody that reality, she feels the weight of your presence more deeply and the ache of your absence more intensely. She recognizes that you're not just another man chasing after her, but a man who is fully in charge of his own energy, and she'll miss you the moment she realizes that energy is no longer immediately within her reach. When it comes to making a woman miss you, most men focus on the wrong things. They obsess over their looks, their money, or the material gifts they can offer. But here's the truth. None of that truly lasts in her memory. What lingers in her heart and mind long after you're gone is how you made her feel. Feelings leave imprints that are much deeper and longer lasting than words or appearances. If you want a woman to miss you badly, even when she's not around you, you need to create moments and experiences that etch themselves into her emotions. These are emotional imprints, and once you know how to create them, you'll never have to chase attention again because she will carry your presence in her mind even when you're silent. Think about this carefully. People don't miss conversations. They miss the emotions attached to those conversations. If you made her laugh in a way that brought out her inner child, she's going to remember that laughter in moments of silence. If you made her feel safe in your presence, she'll crave that sense of security when she's alone. If you inspired her, motivated her, or even challenged her in a way that no one else dared to, she'll replay those moments in her head and long for that feeling again. This is why you need to stop worrying about the quantity of your interactions and focus on the quality. A 5-minute interaction that leaves her smiling to herself for hours is far more powerful than 100 texts that she forgets the moment she reads them. To leave an emotional imprint, you must be intentional with your presence. That means when you're with her, you're not distracted by your phone, you're not half listening while thinking about something else. You're fully locked in. When you give a woman your complete presence, she feels seen in a way that most men never make her feel. Women crave emotional connection more than material validation. And when you offer that, you immediately stand out from the crowd. In a world where everyone is distracted, your undivided attention becomes rare, and rarity always carries value. Another powerful way to leave emotional imprints is through unpredictability. When your energy is predictable, she can anticipate it and it loses its impact. But when you surprise her, whether it's with an unexpected compliment, a deep question, or a playful tease, you spark emotions she wasn't expecting. That unexpected spark becomes memorable. She may not remember every word you said, but she will remember the way her stomach flipped when you caught her off guard with a moment that felt different from the usual routine. These small but powerful sparks are what she will replay in her head when you're not around. Physical presence can also amplify emotional imprints. It's not always about grand gestures, but about subtle moments of intimacy. A strong gaze held a little longer than usual, a gentle touch that conveys warmth without words, or the way you listen intently to her stories as if they matter deeply to you. These small details plant seeds in her mind that grow even when you're gone. She will remember the look in your eyes, the tone in your voice, or the comfort in your silence. These memories become emotional triggers, and whenever she feels them again, she will think of you. What makes emotional imprints so effective is that they turn into comparisons. When she meets other men, she will subconsciously compare how they make her feel to the way you made her feel. If your energy was uplifting, inspiring, and unique, then everyone else will feel dull in comparison. That contrast strengthens your presence in her memory and deepens her longing for you. It's not about being perfect. It's about being different in a way that touches her emotions. And here's the final layer. Emotional imprints don't come from trying too hard, they come from authenticity. If you force a moment, it won't land. But if you're genuine, if your laughter is real, your compliments sincere, your presence grounded, then the feelings you create are powerful because they're true. A woman doesn't miss artificial effort. She misses authenticity. She misses the moments that felt raw, unplanned, and real. That's what sticks with her. That's what keeps her up at night thinking about you. And that's what makes her crave your presence long after you've stepped away. Human beings are wired to crave novelty, and women are no exception. When something becomes predictable, it becomes ordinary, and when it becomes ordinary, it stops evoking strong emotions. This is why many men struggle with keeping a woman's interest. They make themselves too predictable. She knows exactly when he'll text, exactly what he'll say, exactly how he'll act, and exactly what to expect. At first, consistency may feel safe, but over time it becomes dull. If you want a woman to miss you, you must break away from the pattern of predictability and add an element of unpredictability into your presence. Unpredictability doesn't mean being reckless or manipulative. It means creating a sense of anticipation, so she never fully knows what she's going to get when she's around you. That anticipation alone is enough to make her think about you even when you're not there. The beauty of unpredictability is that it triggers curiosity. When she can't fully predict your actions, her mind stays engaged. For example, if you always text her at the same time every night, she will begin to expect it, and the message will lose its excitement. But if sometimes you reach out with a deep, thoughtful message in the morning and other times you go silent for a while, she begins to wonder. That wondering is powerful because it creates emotional investment. Instead of treating your presence like a routine, she begins to anticipate it like a surprise. And when something feels like a surprise, it leaves a stronger emotional impact. Being unpredictable also applies to the way you show up in person. If she always expects you to behave in a certain way, she will mentally prepare herself for it, and there's nothing new for her to experience. But if one day you make her laugh uncontrollably, and another day you surprise her with deep, meaningful conversation, she gets to experience different sides of you. This variety makes your presence feel multidimensional. She doesn't just see you as the funny guy or the serious guy. She sees you as a man who can evoke a range of emotions, and that makes you unforgettable. Every encounter with you feels fresh, and freshness is what keeps desire alive. The unpredictability doesn't have to come in grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the little things. Maybe you take her to a different type of restaurant than she expected, or you recommend a book or movie she never thought you'd be into. Maybe you shift the conversation from light-hearted teasing to suddenly asking her about her dreams and passions in life. These small changes create moments she didn't see coming, and those moments stick with her. Later, when she's lying in bed or going through her day, those unexpected memories will replay in her mind, and she'll find herself missing you because you added a spark she wasn't anticipating. Another aspect of being unpredictable is pulling back at unexpected times. If she assumes you'll always be available and you suddenly choose to focus on your own priorities instead, she notices the shift. She starts to wonder why your attention isn't fully on her, and that wondering turns into missing you. The unpredictability here works not because you're withholding yourself as a game, but because you're showing her that you're not stuck in one fixed pattern of behavior. You're dynamic, and that dynamism keeps her intrigued. It's important to understand that unpredictability works because it creates contrast. If you're always available, there's no contrast. If you're always unavailable, that too becomes predictable. The key is in balancing your presence and absence in ways that she cannot fully anticipate. When she thinks she has you figured out, that's when you gently shift the rhythm. This rhythm keeps her engaged and ensures that she never fully takes you for granted. And when she can't fully anticipate you, she will always be thinking about you in between encounters, wondering what you'll do next and craving the next moment you show up in her life. Attention is the currency of modern relationships. In today's world, where distractions are everywhere, the person who can control how and where they invest their attention instantly stands out. Most men fail at this because they don't know how to regulate their attention with women. They either give too much, flooding her with constant calls, texts, and validation, or they give too little, acting distant and cold in a way that pushes her away. But the real power comes from balance, from being intentional with your attention and knowing how to give it in doses that keep her craving more. When you master the attention game, you create a dynamic where your presence feels valuable, your absence feels noticeable, and she begins to miss you whenever she's not receiving it. The mistake many men make is thinking that women want endless attention. At first, it might feel flattering to her, but very quickly, too much attention loses its value. It's the same as eating your favorite food every single day. Eventually, it becomes boring and you don't crave it anymore. In the same way, if you're always available, always reaching out, and always reminding her that you're there, she has nothing to miss. You've saturated her with your energy, and when something is in oversupply, it loses its worth. On the other hand, when attention is given in the right amount,